afternoon. Good afternoon. I'd like to reopen the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners regular meeting for April 2nd, 2024. And I think we're going to start with an update. We have a public meeting. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay. So I'd like to open the public. Do you have a sheet for me, Elise?
It's
Yeah.
a public meeting, not a public hearing.
Okay. Okay, public meeting for approval of boundary line adjustment BLA 2023-17. Do I need to read the whole parcel or does Rebecca get to do that? I was hoping. Thank you.
So this is final approval for boundary line adjustment BLA 2023-17. The applicants are Richard and.
Do you want me to start over? Okay, so this is for final approval, boundary line adjustment BLA 2023-17. Applicants are Richard Buchanan and Alex Buchanan. The boundary line adjustment is a proposal to adjust the common property line between parcels 05172351000200 and 05172351000100 off of Hawkswind Road. The proposed boundary line adjustment is located within a portion of Section 23, Township 5, Range 17, and the Willamette Meridian. Klickitat County, Washington, in the Golden Dale vicinity. The administrative review of the boundary line adjustment has been completed. Signatures have been obtained from the Road, Health, and Planning Departments and the Treasurer's Office. All conditions attached to the preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds it is in the public's interest to approve this boundary line adjustment, a motion will need to be granted for final approval of BLA 2023-17.
Great. Do we have a motion?
I don't have any issues with the boundary line adjustment, Commissioner Christopher.
I don't have any issues either.
And I don't either.
Madam Chair, having before us boundary line adjustment BLA 2023-17. Applicants Richard Buchanan, my motion would be to approve.
I would second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes for approval of boundary line adjustment BLA 2023-17. Thank you.
Mhm.
While we're signing, do we want to call up?
Would you like to start with planning or?
Yeah, that's what's next on the list.
Right. You can come to the table, Scott. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Wouldn't make a very good juggler.
I would not.
No, there's only two different stacks there and you're having issues.
Yeah. Get rid of it. Yeah. Here, Jack, here's one of those.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon. I'll try to be efficient. So you've got other pressing things this afternoon. The data sheet I gave you is the permit counts. So we've got on one side, we've got all our pre-subs for the last 3 months. On the other side, we have our actual applications. And Debbie, I really appreciate her doing this. She's slowly working forward and backward. So eventually we're going to be able to have a good tracking of what we've done in the past and see how far back we can go and then continue forward from here. So for now, it's just numbers that don't necessarily mean a lot, but it shows you some of the activity that is going on. And there is quite a bit in the planning department. I'll go through my list that I have here. As you're aware, we're applying for a Department of Commerce Community Decarbonization Grant. I'm proceeding through that application. I have a checklist going. The deadline has been changed to Monday. I'm still going to try to shoot for Thursday or Friday, just because I don't like doing things to the last minute. The proposal we're looking at is, I have a question in about the technicalities of a 2-year planned program versus a program that is planned for 1 year and they extend later. But that's why the range is still there. I've increased it a little bit because I'm considering adding one more element to the proposal that I wanted to mention to you. If we do a 2-year proposal, the first year would be to do a draft solar ordinance and draft comprehensive plan amendments. The second year would then be potential adoption of those. The part that we may consider adding in, I wanted to get your initial feedback on it. And then I'm meeting tomorrow with Jeff to discuss it further, would be, I was noticed that our comprehensive plan currently that we use in the office is black and white 8x10s or 8x11s. And so we don't actually have that digitized through GIS yet. As far as I know, unless you know where it is that I don't, I've been having trouble getting on full GIS. So if that's wrong, that's excellent to know. But we've been using the black and whites as far as I can tell. And so if we don't have those, I would like to include that as part of the proposal. I talked to a GIS person I know in my previous job, and he estimated that that alone would be about 15,000. And then if we wanted to add other mapping, I wanted to include some money for that. So I'd like to talk to Jeff about potentially adding mapping, whether the comprehensive plan, maybe a solar map that would include some of the elements that come out of this planning process. But I'd like to add some mapping elements to it.
If I may.
Yes.
Are you talking about the actual zoning? We don't have the
Not the
zoning?
zoning, the comprehensive, so you have the zoning, which is the specific zones.
Yes.
The comprehensive plan map, which is the more general. So instead of saying what type of residential, it's just residential, just commercial. It's much more broad. I'll look into that though with Jeff and the GS folks. We're meeting
I
tomorrow.
think, I honestly, I think we will want to add mapping, so I'm in favor of adding the mapping element and the cost on the mapping. I'm just trying to understand what we don't have GIS that we need GIS. That's, I guess that's
Okay.
trying to understand from my memory of this.
Okay, and I'll look into that. It came up a question on a specific property as far as what the comprehensive plan zoning was, the comprehensive plan zoning, and I was directed to these black and white copies that you have to kind of fight your way through to understand what you're looking at. So we'll look into it further with Jeff.
I'm getting a
Answer.
nod over here, so I think you're
Okay,
probably
okay.
correct.
Okay, so we'll explore that. We won't apply for something, but if we could get your okay to get some mapping involved, I think that could be really valuable to the overall project.
Yeah. if we
And
need-
of course, this is, as Commissioner Christopher said last time, applying for it doesn't mean you accept. So I know there are other terms that you'll want to see once the grant, if we get it awarded, we want to look at.
Checking the language, correct.
Right, because just to repeat, probably for the public more than you, it's, to me, I see it as a two-way grant. It's not a grant just to promote solar. It's a grant to facilitate solar where that can't make sense based on the county's values, and to make it more difficult or potentially prohibit where it doesn't make sense. So I think there's a dual benefit to it, and not just all the others that aren't planning really are just to promote solar. This to me is a more balanced planning look, which is what it should be. I'll continue on unless you have anything else. I just want to mention this. I think I'll take this up possibly with you each individually to talk about, unless you have some initial thoughts. A 10-week countdown. This is a personal element because I have 10 weeks until my family's here, which means 10 weeks that my evenings mean a lot less to me than they will. I see this potentially as a good opportunity to do some community outreach meetings around the comprehensive plan. So I would like to I'm not necessarily looking for feedback now because I know we're a little pressed on time, but I was thinking of trying to do one per week on non-planning commission meetings, either Monday or Tuesday. I don't know how many locations. That's some things I'd like feedback from you on. Is it 4 around the county? Is it 6? Is it more? I picture doing 2 sessions potentially each time, whether it's an hour per session or more. I don't have limits, but potentially one before 5 for people who want to be there during work hours or before dinner. And then one that would start after 5 so people get there after hours, and just a repeat where there maybe be a short presentation at the beginning, introduction to the comprehensive plan, to have some materials ready, and then just look for some general feedback. It'd be feedback that I would eventually take in. It helped me get around to know the county, get to know people, but also then I could report back to the planning commission with some of the input I had. That'd be the beginnings of the public input, certainly not the last, but at least contribute to the start of that project. So that's something I'd like to talk about. Board of Adjustment, they met last night and approved the Rummel Lambert conditional use. I won't say much about it because you're the appeal body. I don't see it being appealed, but I won't say much except for It's heartwarming to see people come out and actually support a project from their neighbors and support it partly because the applicant went out and met with them beforehand and addressed their issues. So it was a very good meeting. And on the topic of the Board of Adjustments, Matt Childs, I may be saying his name wrong, he has resigned officially. And so we'll be looking to you to replace him when that suits you. I'm assuming that you want to do it from District 1 or District 3 because we currently have 2 representatives from District 2 and 1 from each of the others now. So,
I do have someone interested and will be filing an application, and I also posted it on Facebook
okay,
in the area, so hopefully we see something.
terrific. And I want to say their last meeting was June of last year or something like that. So they don't meet.
Well, that was
a
the
lot.
problem is when I'm posting the details of it, it's meets monthly at this time, and it's like, yeah. I
Yeah.
had to kind of change the wording if needed,
Mhm.
to make people understand that they're really not called on that much.
No. The on-call land use consultant, I've spoken with Harper Hoff about starting up. We're going to have a team-to-team meeting on April 18th. That's on their court right now as far as the contract. Their legal team is looking at it and will be getting back to us to see how we can best use them. And if we are to get this grant for the comprehensive plan update, we would use them, I think, a lot in that. And they would also need to backfill some of the other work that we wouldn't be doing because we'd be involved in that project. We also did contract DCG Watershed, now Facet, to let them know, because we want to keep that relationship up in case we do need to call on them with have anything to do with the previous work that they've done as far as the shoreline master plan or the oh, my mind just went blank.
Critical area
Critical areas
ordinance.
ordinance, thank you. Then, but you see that I won't go over the plan commission meeting, the next couple meetings, you see what's up there. And then I mentioned under other current priorities and other pending projects, highlighted a couple there, dark italics that I just wanted you to be aware of in case you have any questions to ask at any point.
Looks great.
Mhm.
Mhm. I love that you're working ahead.
Yes, I'll talk with you offline, but absolutely on the west end of the county, I know Trout Lake and likely Houston BZ would like to have you stop by during your roadshow tour.
Okay,
Mhm.
sounds good.
I'll send you a list.
Thank you. And if there's any local contacts, so it'd be good to help coordinate and get the word out. That'd be helpful too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Hunter from Public Works and Seth Scrolla.
Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Hunter, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
I
was
was just
reading your
waiting-
notes.
Wait for it.
You should, every week I do this to you. Hand me
That's
something
okay.
and I read it.
It's
Just
okay.
Go right ahead.
I handed you something, which is our standard update, but to save time, we're gonna veer off. We're gonna talk about next week.
Okay.
Next week is, well, we have good news, bad news, which is always fun. So we'll start with the good. We're going to bring at least two things before you, maybe a third. One being for the award of the Sundale project. And we did acquire more funding for Sundale, which means we're not, and I'm gonna let Seth get into more into details here in a second. I'll also let him explain the bad news.
Oh, thanks.
That way I can be the bearer of just the good news. But anyway, so we're not actually spending any county dollars on construction.
No, so we were originally planning 300 grand of county, and now there's none.
We asked for more.
I appreciate you asking for
Yeah.
more.
So with that, I'm gonna so there'll be two resolutions, one for the CRAB amendment. From CRAB that says you guys agree to the extra expenditure. And two will be for the award of the project. We want to get the contractor moving because we're also going to finish the project this year,
Good.
which means we're going to put the hard surface on this year.
Okay, good.
That was part of the agreement with Crab. Go ahead and I'll let you explain what's going on about
right.
with those.
Yeah, so I put in a request to increase the RATA funding or the RAP funding for this project through CRAB. And they awarded us an additional $1.6 million and some change to bring the amount up to match for what the bids came in at and cover our construction engineering costs, cost of ER on rock and everything else associated with the project. So that brings our grant total up to 4.881 million for that whole project.
Wow, that's awesome.
The bad news,
Yep,
Mm.
there is bad news.
the Schranz Road Bridge, they made a mistake and shouldn't have awarded that project.
Whoops.
Sent us a letter and said that it's not eligible for the RAP funding because it's not on an arterial. It's on a local access roadway. So we're going to have to request that they withdraw that. Luckily, we haven't asked for reimbursement yet, so we won't have to be paying anything back to CRAB. So they're going to take the money that we should have got for Schranz Road, this is some good news,
Yes.
and apply it towards our next RAP project, which is the Sunnyside Overlay Project in
Okay,
Trout Lake.
you can keep it.
I could be wrong, but wasn't Schranz one of the, I guess I don't want to call it haul roads, but, I'm assuming you're working with them to facilitate what needs to be done to the bridge for them to haul?
It would have had to be done regardless if we'd done the project or not. They would still have to do their part of it because like Seth said, even if we didn't lose the funding, we probably wouldn't have built it till 2026.
Right, okay.
And
So it
there
doesn't change that, is what you're saying?
does
Okay,
not
good.
change what Avangrid will have to do
Okay.
to move their project forward. They still have to repair the bridge,
Got it.
secure the deck.
So that will fall entirely on them, or will county funds be used to offset that?
That was always going to fall on them. They're going to secure the deck to the abutments because the deck has a tendency wants to move. It isn't moving, but with that much traffic, it could. They'll secure it. What we were going to do with the grant was actually replace the bridge. They will not be tied to replace the bridge because
Right.
I would never win that argument. But they are still required to do the needed repairs.
Good.
So with the repairs, how long will that give us on that bridge that we can continue to maintain?
It's quite a while.
Yeah, probably 20 years, I think is what the
Yeah.
consultant figured.
So
So
20-year life.
the idea was not to take any life out of the bridge with these repairs, to bring it back to where it would be without all that extra traffic going
Yeah.
across it.
So it would probably have a 20-year life now as it sits. That's
Okay.
why it's hard to get grant money for it. But when they add all that traffic, that takes away the life
Yeah.
span. So
So that'll be the third item on the consent agenda. There'll be a letter to be signed by the chairman to
Okay.
request a formal withdrawal of that project.
also what that will mean is we will need a budget amendment to recognize those dollars, which we'll work with Jen. And we'll also need a budget amendment because we also, because we were able to jump people last year, because we got our projects done, we got extra federal dollars, which is what we had paved, what we're paving Bickleton in, the town of Bickleton and East Road. Well, we still have our allotment. So we are actually going to do the other section of Bickleton Road that our crews are rebuilding. We looked at doing Snowden, but we feel it's better to go in, saves us some county dollars, not a lot, but some, and put a hard surface on it. And with the amount of traffic that gets, you'll probably get 20, 25, 30 years out of that.
So I haven't heard any bad news yet.
Loss of
We're not
bridge.
replacing the
Wait,
bridge, a
that's
bridge
right.
replacement that really didn't need to be
It was
replaced, so.
Seth's presentation.
And I think that's, the rest of the stuff you can read, it's kind of the same thing we talked about nothing has really, let's see, I'll quickly look. We have the payment to Olympic Roof. What's on the consent agenda, which I think was already approved. Sorry, I missed the early part of it.
I do have one question. How many, do you have an estimate on number of years of rock stockpile we're currently crushing for?
We try to do about 5.
Okay,
Depends on the program, depends on what we're gonna do. Seth's been working really hard with Skamania County, get interlocal so we can sell rock to Skamania.
Well, that's good.
And some of what we're crushing goes towards Sundale Old Highway 8 as well. So stuff we're crushing in Matson will be applied to this project.
Right,
Yes. I think that's all we have,
Great.
isn't it?
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yep.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so remind me that I didn't miss anything up above.
Yep,
Okay,
on payroll warrants and agenda.
okay. So I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass the consent agenda with 12 items.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
Yes, it was brought up earlier this morning that the document is so long that there's no chance we could ever read it. I just want to let everybody know that's what we do on the weekends. We end up reading the entire darn document, at least I do.
And I will tend to agree with that. When I answered an email at 1:30 last night, well, sorry, this morning. And they're like, what are you still doing awake? The answer was reading the agenda.
Mhm. So motion and a second, all those in favor?
I
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda passes.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $309,113.63 and the payroll benefit warrants amount of $0 for the day dating April 1st, 2024.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Payroll warrant certification approvals are passed.
Madam Chair, I move that we pay estimate number 4 and final to Klickitat County Jail re-roof project in the amount of $24,725.00.
I will second the motion.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I
Aye. Motion passes for the pay estimate. Thank you very much. Where do you
I
want?
don't even know, ask a question. What are we doing with the Klickitat Community Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board update? Did they reschedule, cancel? A different date? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Are we going to bypass Commissioner miscellaneous reports and updates and just move to the next?
We've got 3 minutes and staff is showing up, so.
Okay. Yes, you are. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
I can. The board asked that we come with an update. So where we're at this moment in time is the board has asked staff to work on a transition plan. That's an evolving plan currently. A digital project management plan will be a work in progress as soon as we get to that point. Right now, we are fact finding. Financial analysis for public view done. Contact with Norcor for cost and statutory need or requirements. That's been made. Contact has been made with all 3 mayors and city police chiefs. Contracts have been gathered, current contracts have been gathered and reviewed. And I've met with finance, budget, Kayenta administration team to ensure an outline of every possible outcome of what the board may choose to do and how to handle the accounting behind that in the system.
We've reached out, notified the Civil Service Commission. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. We've had one meeting with the union. I've been in contact with our risk pool and talked to them about the issue. The sheriff invited Casey and I over there, and I appreciate that. And his management team is helping us understand some of the issues. I'm in no way speaking for the sheriff, but I appreciate the fact that his management team's helping us understand the things that we don't know, such as Eastern Washington. So we've got contact information there. DOC, transport issue, holding cells, breathalyzer, all of these details that need to be looked at and discussed. And so I appreciate the time with the sheriff and Carmen and Karen. I've talked to the Public Works Director about post-closure issues. Are there any? What would they be? What would that look like? Emergency Management Director about communications between dispatch and Norcor or any outside agency. What did that look like? What challenges could that create or not? Met with the IT manager. Are there IT issues? We have servers over there in that facility. So if there's nobody in there, just those kinds of things, trying to understand what we don't know yet. And so, and then I have not yet reached out to Director Quinn or Tyrone about the behavioral health and the DCRs. I'll be reaching out to Tyrone today or tomorrow to talk about interaction between the DCRs and how this might impact them and that whole issue. So there's a number of people. As you can see, the team's kind of growing as we reach out to people that have the expertise and the understanding on these issues. So we can get the right people working on it to try and gather all of the information that you need. So.
Is there anybody, sorry, if I may, is there anybody doing a investigation or study on policies and procedures that we may need to change in the jail?
There's been one discussed with the sheriff, and he's been open to that. And I don't know the status of that now, so I'll have to have follow-up discussions with that. But I did discuss that with the sheriff some time ago, and he was open to the concept. So where that goes now is yet to be discussed. So,
Thank you.
is that correct, Chair?
Gibson, do you have any questions?
If you want to go first, feel free. I've got trying to create a list here.
Well, I have to thank you. This is a very long list of people who's been helping do research. So we have decisions, so we can make informed decisions, and I appreciate it. Right now, I don't have any questions. I just want everybody to know in the room with us, staff has been working, and not all of us have been able to review all of the information yet. And that will come in a comprehensive packet once staff is able to put everything together. A lot of nuts and bolts.
Madam Chair, the only thing that I've had to review is the cost analysis. So I have not seen any of the rest of it. Those are the facts that we need to see. Commissioner Christopher, in his opening statement today, brought up many questions that I was not able to write them all down. I would ask that he get those questions or the ones that are relevant that we need to have answered before making a final decision or any recommendation from staff.
I touched on some of those, but want to make sure we have
Right.
the rest.
I will copy and forward them to you, and this board can choose which ones they feel are relevant or not.
Okay.
Okay, you said board, so
Uh,
that's good. I'll get them too from Elise. Okay.
And so I didn't write those down. I'm creating a list. I can, if you'd like, go over some of them. I know like for So a project of this magnitude, what we do, like with the bridge, is we create a risk register so that we look at all the possibilities. And it sounds like you're creating something similar to that in Excel form so that we can get all the answers that we need. So thank you for that. It's just in a different format. Some of the, and I can't recall, there's a lot of things spoken this morning, so I can't recall everything that Commissioner Christopher brought up. But the things that I need to know, the projected costs associated with transitioning Norcor. As well as the projected costs that we're seeing for potentially keeping it and providing a level of services. And with that, I'm sorry, Jen, but this is going to be a lot of work.
I know.
We need to know the cost of providing the same level of medical and mental health care that Norcor provides. I need to be able to do a apples to apples comparison. And then one thing that was brought up this morning that people talked about that's been brought up by the sheriff in the past is how long does our jail have? How long can we make that last? And if we are to have to rebuild that jail, we know it's in the tens or scores of millions of dollars. And maybe what we can do is do a review to find out what other jails that are being built of a similar size or cost estimates to find out what that looks like. So that if we have to make that decision in the future, what that cost will be on the taxpayers. What are the upfront costs and the ongoing expenses with the transition that we do and don't know? Remember, I live by the rule of the unintended consequences and making sure that we know those answers before we move forward. There are professionals in the room that have stated that, they have a vast experience in this. That might be something that we can rely on in some degree. Because as I stated on the 26th, creating that big tent to make the hard choices and the hard decisions that we know we're going to have to make. Some of these I can't ask because I know that there's discussions with the union. Some of the questions that I do have is, can any corrections deputies transition to Norcor? Is that a possibility that we currently have? I'm not going to ask for a response or anything right now. I'm just throwing things out there. I don't want to create any liability. Can any deputies be reassigned for transport if the county is to do all the transport? And what are those costs? One of the other large issues that we have for transport in Klickitat County that was brought up again this morning and we hear all the time is behavioral health. If we are going to create a transport department, is that something that they can also transport our behavioral health patients to the facilities that are within Washington State that we send them to? If they need training, and what would that look like? What are those possibilities? Is that a potential for a win-win where it's something we've been fighting for 2 years for our DCRs to get transport for mental health? I need to know what support services are going to be provided to help the employees navigate their job change or transitions. Again, I know you can't respond to any of these right now. How will the transition impact our other stakeholders, such as our law enforcement agencies, the court system, and community organizations? We've been getting emails about this, and we need to take all that into account. As we can see, these things are very public. In many counties, they have a public information officer that would create a public engagement plan. We don't have that here. We have our amazing staff who does the best they can. And so how are we going to continue to gather feedback as we address this in the future? And what strategies can we implement to assure that we are taking into consideration everyone's concerns?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just sent an email with the questions I had discussed this morning to the BoCC.
Great.
for distribution to you. It also went to Rob. It also went to Jen, and it also went to the sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have no questions because I've been working with all the different staff asking those questions and you guys have been fielding everything that we've discussed.
I got a few more if you'd like.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just
Okay,
trying to work through it.
no, it's okay.
We need to know the legal implications. So we need our legal staff on board. We need to know the regulatory requirements about working across the state line. We had multiple people today mention about extradition. I think that that's been hopefully answered due to other RCWs. But we need to double, triple check that. We need to know, when
If we seek legal opinions, does the commissioners want to see that before an opinion request is submitted on some of these questions?
No, I hope that this is going to be from personal, sorry,
No.
if I may. Staff, I've always said that staff can speak with legal on any issues. And the direction in the motion was is that you would available, and I hope to goodness grace, we're talking with legal, you know what I mean? The contract with Narcor or potential contract with Narcor. Those negotiations that are being undertaken, we need to see that and know about that and know the timelines. I don't want it to be like when you pick an insurance company and they give you a great deal year one, and then year two, they come back and they double or triple their costs. That's something that's I always look out for in all business transactions. So I want to make sure we're getting a real deal, not a come here deal. Which goes along with all business transitions, the cost of transition. Timelines and milestones, what's the proposed timeline for trail transition? I need to know key milestones and deadlines and how we're going to meet or not meet those. How's progress going to be monitored and evaluated? And if there are potential delays or challenges that could impact that timeline, how will they be mitigated? We are talking about people's jobs and people's lives here and staff that work for the county. We need to know these answers. We need to know the potential risks, the challenges from a transition. How are those going to be identified and addressed? And then more importantly, the thing that I always look at, options B and C, what are the contingency plans? If we start down this path, there's impacts to the jail, jail staff leaves, and then it all blows up or something like that happens. What are those contingency plans? And then how are we going to manage those risks if we do decide to move that way to ensure a smooth and successful transition? These are just a few of the things that I've come up with, and I know that staff is doing a great job. I know you've not been able to inform me, and I'm sure you've worked out some of these answers. But this is not something that's simple or easy. And I know that Commissioner Christopher had a lot of questions as well. He has his hand up, so I will yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. All good questions that Commissioner Anderson asked, but in listening to them, I can't help but think they're all pointed to the eventual transfer to Norcor. I'm not hearing any opinions or fact finding of what is it going to take to investigate? Was there any wrongdoing? Is there anything wrong in the jail? What potentially needs fixed and or keeping it where it is? Is there any concerted effort into investigating whether there was some type of wrongdoing or not? What are our current jail conditions? As far as physical and I've seen other pictures of other jails, one in Franklin County where the walls are all busted in and this thing's all hanging on sideways. I guess I would say I would like to see evidence or proof that there's something broken. And I'm not hearing much investigation into that, just information there might need to make a documented push to switch across the river.
And I agree, but that's something that, if you feel the same way or I still need it, I need legal advice on that because I'm not sure where it stands since we have one litigation currently, potential where we can get involved or what we can do at that point for those types of things. So I'd like to reach out for legal opinion. I agree it's necessary, but I'm just not quite sure if I can step over that line.
Well, I have no problem with the chair seeking legal opinion. I believe what you would find is we are entitled to that information. We probably shouldn't share that information with the public because there's pending litigation, but we are entitled to know the information.
Okay. I'll ask that question and then share that.
And Madam Chair, if I may.
Mhm.
I was only asking these questions based on what was brought up for the agenda today, and that was based on the motion that was made. When it goes towards talking about the jail and my questions about the jail staff, conditions in the jail, all of that information, that is
Okay.
a policy, another subject. I have lots of questions that I would like numbers, facts, and figures on in the jail. I was, of course, being very paying close attention to my words because I know that the liability and litigation is involved, just as I stated this morning, where I cannot speak about the staff or inmates or the litigation. So I'm trying to be as transparent as possible while ensuring that the community and the people know these are the questions that we need answered before we make any decision. In terms of us doing investigation, the jail is underneath the sheriff's department. I've been told that the sheriff has agreed to something, or I don't want to use the word investigation, but
Mhm.
something that will be looked at in the jail. And I don't want to speak to that, but I would assume that those things are going to happen as well. So again, I'm focused on what we have before us right now. And I don't want to go out on a limb any further than that.
Anything else?
Yeah, and I should clarify what the sheriff, we were talking about was not an investigation. It was, and I don't want to call it a third-party review. It's just having someone come in on the risk management side of the insurance pool to do a walkthrough and offer suggestions. So it was not an investigation. So.
And one other thing, in the next piece of this is not only the public outreach and talk, it's creating that internal tent between staff, other electeds, and the sheriff, and what that plan is with the head of the head of this, which has been associated with Commissioner Zoller, to working with the sheriff and having those conversations about that direction. I hope that occurs. Again, I know I can't be involved with that unless it's in a public meeting, and I'm sure some of this has to occur outside the public meeting. And the motion that I made and agreement, I guess I didn't make a motion on the 26th, is that Commissioner Zoller is point on this. And I still stand behind that, that she's been working on this and continues to work on this. Again, we as commissioners, I think it was brought up this morning about Kings. People think that we can do a lot of things. And we do with our legislative capacity and our executive capacity. We do have a lot of things that we can do. There are a lot of things in issues in which our hands are tied quite tightly behind our backs that we cannot step out of. From my perspective, we are tasked with making the hard decisions. In order to make the hard decisions and the big decisions and the decisions that will affect the county for the next 40 years, It was brought up this morning, this building. This building is a decision that was made prior to either three of us sitting here. It was made by a previous board. We just have to pay for it. And we're paying for it for the next 20 years. That's our job, to find a way to pay for these things and these decisions. I want the community to be very cognizant that that I take these decisions very seriously, that are going to have long-lasting ramifications on budgets that not I, but the predecessors are gonna have to live with. And so we need to have all that information. I don't mind making the hard decisions. It's what we're elected to do. I just like to have the information to make those decisions.
Anything else? I haven't. So moving forward, we do not have a resolution with us today. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of information to gather before we make decisions.
Speaking about, if I may, thank you. Open and transparent and having the discussions. We're not allowed to talk outside of it. Sharing that information, I would like to create a way that we can, if we need to have more meetings, so that Commissioner Christopher and I can be, at least brought up to speed, either by staff, or whether we can do that via email from staff, letting us know what is occurring. And then I also want to make myself available in any way throughout the process, that I will cancel any meetings that I have otherwise to be a part of it.
And I would agree. I would like to see us have an update weekly during our Tuesday board meeting, and then emails Thursday, Friday, if there's any other update that is pertinent before the next Tuesday.
Jen?
If I may. At this moment in time, it is quite a heavy burden for staff. And to add multiple emails to that too would be cumbersome, but willing to do so. Also willing to, my initial thought was with the digital project management would be to utilize what the board and I already utilize for sharing information as far as financials, and that would be smart sheets to create that digital plan there, so that where I limit your access to view only, you cannot make comments, you cannot edit anything in there. And that way that you could see in real time what tasks are assigned to who and who's working on what. If that would be beneficial to the board, I know it would help us anyway.
I guess I will take the grenade on this one, that I have trouble using smart sheets, so I would prefer everything was given to me in either paper form or by email, because I have trouble using smart sheets.
Okay.
We use, like with the bridge, we use the collaborative function, smart sheets and all that. I'm totally fine with that being in printing something off for Commissioner Christopher, but the smart sheet, so that I can continue to review that risk register or plan as it comes together, I think is just fine.
It'll give us the opportunity to have everything in real time as people are.
Yep.
And to be able to make comments within there, and once I get it built, if you would like, I can sit down with you and we can review that too. And of course, we'll print an email if that's what you request. It'll be more real time if you're able to utilize the function, and I'm definitely willing to help you figure
We'll
that
make
out.
it work.
And again, I just want to be clear for the public that this is something that staff is creating. This is not Commissioner Zoller creating it and putting stuff in there, then we're reading it and creating a public record or a public meeting. This is staff. This is not what we do.
Correct.
Okay, just
Anything else? No?
Nothing else.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update. And thank you for the work you're doing on behalf of everybody.
Will there be any opportunity for public comment? We don't allow.
We
public-
don't after public comment session, but we'll be glad to talk to you individually after session. I'd be glad to meet with you. I'd like to hear your ideas.
And also, we all read our emails.
Mhm.
I took copious notes this morning. It's all recorded. And I'd be happy to meet with anyone and have any conversations, or phone calls. Just Jacob A. at klickitatcounty.org and or call the office and let's schedule a meeting.
So any miscellaneous reports or comments? Nobody have anything this afternoon?
Let me go back through give me 1 second. Just a comment, on the consent agenda, we signed the CHPW contract.
Okay.
That will get dollars every month flowing in, so that we start building a little bit of a piggy bank for outpatient behavioral health services.
Oh, good.
We have the goal of starting outpatient treatment services on July 1. That's still the internal goal. We are talking about potentially substance use disorder services before that, if possible. But that is the first of 3 or 4 contracts that we need to do. We have meetings when Director Quinn get returns for some of the others, so that hopefully we can ensure that the costs of the behavioral health outpatient treatment services program will not be borne. And that is how I've stood firmly on that. They will not be borne by the citizens of Klickitat County. All of those costs will be borne by the state. And that is the direction that this board has kind of given us, and that's the direction that we're going. If we get that completely staffed and moving forward, it will be close to a $2 million a year program that you will be able to see, the overall county budget will be going up by, potentially $2 million. But the revenues are associated with that come with it. And that is very important.
It's unusual.
That we don't have those kind of dollars. And that program has been sorely lacking within Klickitat County for the last 2 years. And I think that is one of the reasons that we are seeing what we are seeing in the jail, because we don't have outpatient treatment services, and that has impacts. We knew when we took over crisis management, when comprehensive stepped away, that the impacts would start being felt, and they're downstream. As those things continue to fall downstream, it falls on the sheriff's department, it falls on the corrections of deputies. It then goes into the legal system, and all of that has costs associated with it. And so we are doing our very best to ensure that there's the outpatient treatment services so that the citizens of Klickitat County can get the care that they need. So I just wanted to give an update on that.
Madam Chair, are we still planning on having the town hall in this building on Tuesday, the 16th? It's from 6 to 8 p.m.
I believe it's still on the schedule. I haven't heard differently.
I remember Commissioner Christopher, did you make decisions on how you wanted to run that? Did you want it to be an in-person only, a hybrid? On the first one, I took that one on. This one, you wanted it to be yours. So how do you want to run it?
I'm fine with in-person or hybrid, and I think the people should get to ask 2 questions, whether that's a question and then a follow-up based on the answer. And that should keep it moving right along.
Did you want to have a mediator like we did on the first one, or do you just want people to come forward, ask their questions?
I think people have proved that they can come forward and be civil. I worry about a mediator screening questions. I think the board can respond back that I'm sorry, we can't answer that particular question and give them the reason why. And at least then they would know, versus just not getting the question asked or answered. So I would rather have it a less formal, more face to face.
That's fine with me.
It's on the schedule. If there's, I know at the last minute, we were doing everything we could. If we have enough, and a long enough time frame for the Facebook account that we created, would you like to have that live on the Facebook if that's possible as well?
I'm open to all options as long as there's an in-person option. I know of plenty of people that don't have access to internet or are senior and don't have the wherewithal. And they want to actually be in person, so they should be allowed.
And did you want, like we did with the last one, to have questions submitted ahead of time?
You can do, I'm fine with them coming up and asking the question. I don't need to screen questions or,
I guess the issue is there's a lot of people who might not be available from 6 to 8. And so do we want to, I'm trying to think of the, putting this out to the public with the public notice for staff, the direction. Do we want to say, you can ask your question by emailing it to BoCC? This is the program. This is how it's going to be run. I'm just trying to make sure because we found out last time there were a bunch of questions on the day of, and we were doing this for the first time. I'm trying to get everything figured out ahead of time.
I think it'd work well if we're not having a moderator, if we gave them the option to email in and then staff could help us. If they're not in the room, they could present a question. Gives them another opportunity. Because they might not be able to be on Zoom.
how would they hear the answer?
It'll be recorded.
Mhm.
I'm fine with whatever the board chooses to do.
Okay. We'll leave all options open for them.
And who's going to take point? I know on the last one, I, posted on every community council and every community group, letting everyone know and letting the newspaper know ahead of time. Are you going to take point on doing the outreach this time? Or would you like staff to do it or each of us to kind of do it on our own?
I would say if you want to notify the citizens in your district, feel free to do so.
And this is why counties have a public information officer. So you would like, so I'm just asking for clarification. You'd like me to only let the people in my district know you'll take care of your district's chairman?
I think we can each, I guess I would say, I think we can each handle our district and notify the paper that we're doing this and post it on Facebook and we don't need one person doing all the work. I'm pretty sure we can all take our little share of it.
Okay.
And
So staff will notify the newspaper and can you post it on our Facebook? Okay.
And let's not forget the radio this time.
oh, yeah, good call. I forgot that question.
The radio.
We got a question if the next time we did a Zoom meeting, town hall, if we would allow radio in the room to record it. I was, yeah.
I guess, would we like staff to reach out to the radio that we could make sure, I don't know the best way to do it if they, because they can't log into our system and plug in. And they can record like from their computer into it, but they can't come in and plug into our system is what I'm saying.
Right, if they come in here with a microphone plugged into the thing, we might get feedback, so. Yeah, that's an interesting,
So
if they have their own system and it's just literally a mic sitting on the table, it would be fine. And if they want to set a microphone out there and a microphone up here, I have no problem.
I
So I
know,
would say let's let staff direct the newspaper and the radio. Let's tell everybody you get 2 questions. You get a question and a follow-up. And then Each commissioner gets to answer each question. Cause we may have different answers. And then just notify the people in your communities of it. We're good.
So I just, and then in final, the board chair will then be in essence moderating the meeting.
Works for you?
Just like all meetings.
Okay.
Great. Anything else?
I'm sorry that you have to sit here and listen to us talk about the fine details of how we run a meeting. But this is the only time when we can communicate. And so it's the only time we can actually work these things out. I have nothing else.
Nothing else? Nothing else for the day? No executive session?
Hold on, let me double check to make sure we're not going to be anywhere else together. Okay.
I did, just before you make the motion, I did notify staff that Saturday the 13th is the Lincoln Day dinner and they might want to notice it in case multiple commissioners.
Yep, it's on the
So,
blue card.
yeah.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, noting that no workshops are scheduled for April 4th, 2024. More than one commissioner may be attending the Republican Party Lincoln Day dinner on April 13th at 5:30 at the Goldendale Grange. With that, I would thank all of our 95 participants online, everyone in the room who came back. Thank you very much.
I would second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Nope, just thanking everybody for paying attention. I wish you'd all pay attention every week.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
The problem with that is that's a lot of people not working.